The last thing we want to do when we're playing guitar is to sound like a total beginner, especially if you're not a beginner. Hey guys, I'm Jack and welcome to Guitar Elevation, the channel that is all about helping you elevate your guitar playing so you can play anything you dream of. And today we're dreaming of having a better guitar sound and not sounding like a beginner. The tactics I'm going to share with you are things I used on my own beginner and intermediate students, and the results we got in only 1 week were massive. So I hope you get the same results for yourself as well. The tactics I want to cover with you are number 1, talking about the fretting hand and the coordination between the fingers. Number 2 is the placement of those fingers on the fretboard. Number 3, it's the picking hand and the picking direction. Number 4 is the position of my picking hand in regards to my guitar. And number 5, which is a pro tip, I'll leave till the end of this video, so you better stick till the end. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Tactic number 1, the fretting hand finger coordination. What I'm going to share with you is basically usually a mistake that is done when we're playing a melody, when we're playing consecutive notes on one string. So here's the thing, whenever we're playing 2 or more consecutive notes on one single string, what usually happens with beginners is that they play their first note like that, and then before playing the second note, what they do is they release the first finger and then play the second note with any other finger. So what happens is they're doing this movement, this dual movement of removing the first finger and then placing the second finger. So first of all, they're kind of like focusing more because they're doing more movements. And what is happening here, they're leaving space or they're leaving room for string noise and a bad articulation. What you should do instead is whenever you're playing 2 notes, for example, play the first one and let's assume the second one is just close to it. So you don't actually have to travel across the fretboard. You play the first one, and then you leave the first finger here, you don't move it. And now what you need to do is place the second finger or any other finger you want to play with and fret the next note while keeping the first finger in its place. That's the good movement. And only then I can release my first finger. See, what a beginner player do is that they release the first finger before putting the second finger. Okay, and it works the other way around, meaning if I'm fretting, for example, on 7 and then I want to fret on 5, same thing. I fret on 7 and then I put my first finger on the 5 and then I release and play. But this has to be simultaneously happening at the same time. That's my tip number 1 for you. And this way you'll have less string noise and better articulation. Tactic number 2 is all about the positioning of the fingers of my fretting hand. So what usually happens with beginner students and sometimes even intermediate ones, you hear that buzzing sound and it makes you go crazy. You hear that sound? It makes you go crazy. So here's how we're gonna remedy that. What you need to do is place your finger right next to the superior fret. If you're playing the fret number 4, okay, what you need to do is put your finger next to the 5th fret, all right, just here, like just before it, and you'll get a better sounding note. Something else is you need to apply just enough pressure. You don't need to over squeeze or under squeeze. If you under squeeze, you're gonna get this buzzing sound no matter where you put your finger. But here's the catch. Even if I put my finger away from the fret but I apply enough pressure, I'll be able to get a good sound. You see my finger is far away, but it's still a good sounding note. Oh, and by the way, let's add one more tip. Don't forget to play the notes with your fingertip and not with the flashy part of your finger. Great stuff, everybody. Now it's time for tactic number 3. Tactic number 3 is about the picking direction. A lot of beginner students, what they do is play in a unidirectional way, which means they only use a downstroke, for example. So, for example, they do this downstroke and then another downstroke and then a downstroke and then another downstroke. Instead of what? Instead of alternating their picking, which means one time it's down and the other time it's up. That way, what we do is we're gaining time and we're playing faster and we're leaving less room for string noise, you know, with the movement of having to downstroke and then traveling all the way up and then doing downstroke again. Tactic number 4. It's all about the positioning of your picking hand. I see that with a lot of students is when they're playing, they're moving away from the guitar. This will of course cause lots of string noise and it will leave room for lots of mistakes. Instead, what you need to do is do smaller arcs. What I mean by that is when you're picking, your pick is kind of doing an arc movement. Do smaller movements, economy of motion. The smaller the movement, the less chances you'll have to make string noise. That's what I mean. Instead of doing that, do smaller movements. See? You'll be able to speed up your playing if you do smaller movements with your picking hand. And of course, it's all down up. Doing those 4 tactics will give you a better sound and a better overall playing. Trust me, I know you do. By the way, check the first comment below or the details section because I always keep some exciting news over there or some free content or some pass to something we're doing. So keep an eye on that and let's go. Okay, now it's time for tactic number 5. Tactic number 5, which is the pro tip of this lesson, is especially true whenever we're trying to strum chords and whenever we're playing chord progressions. So what we see with beginner students is that, for instance, they're playing a chord and then they gotta switch to another challenging chord. So what they do is they just stop playing and then they start focusing on putting the right fingers in their right place, you know, before playing. What happens is that they just broke the flow of the song, they broke the tempo and they went out of rhythm. Here's the thing to keep and to remember forever, especially if you want to play or perform in front of other people. Most people are tone deaf, so if you play a wrong pitch, they might not realize that there's something wrong. However, most people have a good sense of rhythms and they know whenever something is off. So people will know if you just broke the rhythm and if you just stopped playing. Here's what you gotta do in order not to break the flow and the groove of the song. You either play open strings until you have time to fret the chord, or you just mute the guitar and skip that hard chord. Especially if this hard chord is just 1 or 2 beats or one measure, and if that measure is going fast, then that's fine. For example, you're playing. Cool, so you see the groove was there. So those were my 5 tactics for you in order to get a better overall sound. So number 1 was the fretting hand and the finger coordination. Number 2 was the placement of those fingers. Number 3 was about the picking direction. Number 4 was about the economy of motion, the smaller movements. And number 5, I did not actually call it, but let's call it keeping the groove going. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And if you did and you found it was helpful for your guitar playing, then you'll surely enjoy the following one. All right, so until next time, take care and practice well.